post those questions on the chat for us. And Shilpa ma'am, the questions which you'll see in the chat box, you can direct those questions to the panelist, which you find it to be much relevant, right?
And can I make one suggestion? You see, at times the student asks such question where a lot of detail may be required. They want detailed information. So I would suggest that if they suppose address a question to some individual, say they address it to me or to Ajit or to anybody else, then I think those questions can be passed on to the concerned institution or to the concerned people for them to perhaps answer at a later time.
So
that would make sense.
So we'll do that. We'll do that. We are live now.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So we are live now. So a warm welcome to all the audience in UAE, Qatar, and Oman. It's lovely evening, and thank you so much, all of you, for joining this session. It's little unfortunate that we could not meet you this year during our physical exhibitions, which we used to conduct, but certainly look forward to host a physical exhibition like we have been doing in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Ras Al Khaimah, Sharjah, Doha, as well as Muscat. In 2021, expected to do that. But this is an opportunity for us to have a very esteemed and distinguished panel who are going to take it forward, this discussion. And today, a very eminent career coach and career counselor, Miss Shilpa Singh, she is here, who's a very renowned personality when it comes to career guidance in India as well as overseas. So my humble request to ma'am to please take this to steer this session forward. And thank you so much, all the panelists, for joining in. Over to you, Shilpa ma'am.
Thank you so much, Vivek. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. It's good to be able to be here. And good evening to our panelists, to all the parents and students who might be logged in watching us today. Thank you for taking the time. I would just take a couple of seconds to introduce the panel who you will be hearing from today. And you have
Ajit ji, can you please mute yourself? Can you please mute yourself?
Yeah, wonderful. Great. Thank you so much. So thank you. And like I said, everyone here today, very lucky. We have a very esteemed panel to be able to answer questions on higher education, on the new education policy and its context for higher education. So I will go ahead and introduce our panelists. We have Dr. Sandeep Shastri, who's the Vice Chancellor of Jagran Lake University in Bhopal. We have Chaitanya Chinchelekar, Vice President and CTO, Whistling Woods International at Mumbai. Dr. Sanjay Modi, Executive Dean, Faculty of Business and Applied Arts at Lovely Professional University. We have Dr. Ajit Nandugari from Director International Admissions, GD Goenka University, based in the Delhi NCR area. And my name is Shilpa, and I am a career coach at Mindler. And I work with students across the country as well as internationally. So thank you very much, all of you, for taking the time to speak to me. We have been talking and hearing a lot about the new education policy. We've been hearing about the major changes that are taking place that should hopefully be able to make a very major impact on both our school education and therefore as a ripple effect onto our higher education. Now we're talking about bringing in elements of design thinking and AI, and we're talking about data analytics, and we're talking about CBSE tying up with Microsoft to be able to do more in schools. Lots of interesting things that are taking place and that are happening. And that makes for very exciting times for the product that is going to come out of school systems for implementation both in our CBSE schools outside of India as well as within India. So for the higher education institutions, it definitely comes up as something that you have to be prepared for and be ready for when it comes to the kind of student who might be hopefully coming your way soon. There are elements of the education policy we need to keep in mind that are going to be in terms of how the implementation will take place and how effective that will be. So we are still in that process of being able to do that. So I want to be able to talk about, elements related to our higher education and be able to talk about the aspects of how these things, how we are going to change things. So we're looking at a focus on research. We're looking at a focus on interdisciplinary education. We're looking at a focus on being able to create aspects related to flexibility. We're building all of that. So I want to be able to understand from each of you, how do you feel your institution is embracing these areas and being able to take these forward? So Dr. Shastri, if I may, I'd like to get your input on this, all the gamut of what the NEP is wanting to push towards. How do you feel your institution is, or what your thoughts are on this first, and what you could share with us about your institute doing that?
Thank you so much, Shilpa ji. It's indeed an honor to be here. And at Jagran Lake City University, the national education policy has been music to our ears because we have focused on non-STEM education. That's been our priority, that's been our focus, and that's been our strength. So in a sense, the way NEP privileges education and learning across the domain, that has been something that has come to our advantage. I think we are in a world now in the backdrop of NEP when a lot of people tell me that they are studying engineering or medicine or MBA or computer science. I say wonderful, but I also say within myself, so what? You see, there are so many who are studying that. And I think NEP provides us that opportunity to actually focus on courses which you call unconventional. I think the philosophical foundations of NEP for me are four things. I've talked about Navasutras, but I would like to just focus on four. How NEP focuses on lifelong learning, flexibility, rootedness, and interdisciplinarity. And all the four is something we at Jagran are trying to bring into the education system, where measuring what matters. See, where at the end of the day, the learning process and how this learner takes it forward in his or her life. Now, making learning matter. Getting real with out of the classroom experience is what NEP asks you to do. That is something else we are focusing on. Getting ready to be able to relate the classroom to the outside world. And Shilpa ji, I'll just make one point. NEP forces us to ask one question. Is the future about courses and curriculum? Is the future about methods and measuring? Or is the future about attitudes and approaches? And our feeling at Jagran Lake City University is that it's about attitudes and approaches. The way we as facilitators approach learning, the way learners approach learning. We have a dictum at JLU which all of us follow. We ask ourselves the question, do we walk to the campus and run back home, or run to the campus and walk back home? And that's what I mean by attitude and approach. NEP requires the joy of learning to come in, and we want that joy of learning to be there. And that can happen in the way courses are designed, the imaginative way by which students are involved in the designing of courses and taking forward the learning. And that is what we at JLU are trying to bring in and make the NEP a reality. Not an overnight process, not even a one-year process, but involves change in the way people think on issues.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on that. And the change in how we are thinking is the key thing. So, Dr. Modi, your thoughts on this whole element of the change that's coming in through NEP, what it implies, and what is it that we're looking for? So, if you could share your thoughts with me as well, and I'll then move forward to each person.
Thank you, Shilpa ji. I think the most important element of the new education policy, which we had already been focusing on, is outcome-based learning. I think this is the key area. Earlier, most of the Indian institutions had not been doing that. But we as a university, lovely professional university, we had been right from the very beginning focusing on outcome-based learning, which means making education, the entire process, student-centric, rather than being faculty-centric, making it student-centric. So the student engagement is high. There are live projects for students. Even outside beyond the class, the students work in the community. They do community development projects. They take up live projects from the industry, earn while they learn. They try entrepreneurship. There's a very active student welfare division of student welfare, where we have 150 clubs, student clubs, where the students engage themselves in various activities of their choice.
Right.
So the idea is about what is the expectation of the industry and the society from students. They want people who can think on their feet. They want people who have higher order thinking skills of analysis, of evaluation, and who are able to create. So the total focus is to enhance the higher order thinking skills of the students. So, and giving, as Ajit also said, giving them the multidisciplinary approach, exposure. So we have minors thrown in, where you, instead of one, you can choose 4 courses of a minor, which is engineering students can choose a social science minor, or a performing arts minor, and the vice versa. So this is a grand mix, and LPU, we have more than 200 programs being offered of every domain. So this makes for a very good exchange of ideas. So I think, and then the credit bank is another, dimension which the national education policy has added. And I think that's a very good step, so that the students have the flexibility of perhaps dropping out for a while, go to the industry, do something of their own, try their hand at entrepreneurship, come back and complete their degrees.
Right. So I do want to come to the credit bank thing in much more detail. I'm glad you brought that up now. Yes, please, go ahead.
So the focus is that the students should be first day, first hour ready. So, and for that, the NEP also focuses on deepening the relationship with the industry, interaction interface with the industry, so that we understand what the industry wants. So right from the stage of governing the university, to having people on the board of studies, to inviting them to evaluate the student projects, capstone projects, and having them on the advisory boards of different disciplines. All these are endeavors to make sure that we never get away from the industry orientation.
Right.
And we keep pace with with the international institutions or industries. So all that ensures that the student is kept fully updated on cutting curriculum, and this student engagement is very high to achieve the learning outcomes.
Wonderful. Thank you. Chaitanya, your thoughts on the changes that the national education policy has brought in, and what does it mean for Whistling Woods?
Hello, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. So, tomorrow, Whistling Woods completes 15 years in existence. And today, right now, when I'm sitting here, talking about this, all I can think of is that the NEP is 15 years too late. Because, a lot of what is there in the NEP is what we've been doing now for 15 years already. And, I just want to share 2 or 3 slides. I mean, it's very generic stuff, but these are really the crux which enables the quality education to go through, right? So if you look at, this is the key message that we really need to give to our students, which we have been giving, is when you have forgotten what you studied for your exams, what remains is education. And we've been doing that now for 15 years, and this is what the NEP intends to do. Right? The other thing that it kind of allows us to do is to, as educational institutions, we all have our respective goals and tasks, and we have tools at our disposal, and those are what we need to serve. So, so if you look at the goals that any institute should seek to achieve, which is employment, entrepreneurship, and research, and the tools we have at our disposal, which is education, training, and enabling ideation. And this grid has been incomplete for a really, really long time. There hasn't been academic framework which has allowed this grid to be absolutely fully complete. And now with the NEP, we can actually complete it, where you can train the student or educate the student or enable ideation in the student, not just for employment or entrepreneurship or research, but as a whole, right? So there's nobody who's saying that a creative engineer won't be a better engineer, or a creative doctor won't be a better doctor, or a doctor who has better communication skills won't necessarily be better at her job. So, I think it's good that the NEP allows educational institutions to start to give importance to a well-rounded professional, in addition to being a specialized professional. And I mean, that then will end up with essentially this, right? This is what we will end up then doing for students, where we will, prepare students for careers that don't exist using technologies that haven't been invented to solve problems that are not yet known, which is what structure of education 4.0 needs to do, which is what the NEP will usher in.
Yeah.
Right? So it's obviously not only the NEP can't do it. It's incumbent on all of us as educational institutions to ensure that that goal is fulfilled. So that's the broad overview that I'd like to.
Wonderful. So lots to happen, lots to change. Dr. Ajit, your inputs, please. Your thoughts on the changes on NEP as well as your institute input.
Good evening, everybody. Before I start this talking about NEP, I want to start with an example, a small example. You make so many changes, this and that. I give you an example, international student coming from XYZ country, for example, coming from Zambia or Lesotho, they have subject combination called physical science, biology, mathematics. Okay. Now, physical science is a combination of physics and chemistry. And they are not eligible to study B pharmacy or physiotherapy or nursing because the statutory bodies here demand physics, chemistry, and maths, or physics, chemistry, biology as separate subjects. Now, bringing all this change to education policy, bringing soft programs into curriculum, this, that, the first and basic foundation that is required is change the inbuilt system there. Now, if you are saying that, okay, in India, somebody who's as per NEP, somebody who has done physics and maths and takes music or yoga, he would be eligible for engineering. But somebody coming from Lesotho having same thing combination is not allowed by AIU. That's what I'm saying. You've done a change, posting about changes, but you've not done the basic homework inside. If you're not done your basic homework inside and you're saying that, oh, we've done so much, that we see creating something and posting about it without doing the proper changes inbuilt in the system is not good. Now, I am asking second question. Again, NEP could be good. I just heard the Vice Chancellor of Jagran Lake City, and I heard the most respected man whom I respect in education is Dr. Sanjay Modi. I really like him too much when he talks. But, and I heard the director of Visiting Woods also, and they were saying, okay, it's all good. I am asking, what was bad earlier? Did anybody ask them not to take music as soft subject during the main several subjects? Nobody said no. But here, you made and saying loud that we have done so much good about it. I agree. I agree on one part. So I am studying engineering, and the third year of my life, I had taken music in all the 3 years, and I felt that no, I could not be good. I will not be a good engineer. I would be a good singer. I will just quit engineering and go for singing. That's what you mean. There's an exit there, but there was exit earlier also. Who said there was no exit?
Right. Okay. Fair point.
I think I already said that to respond to Ajit, what he said. I already said that private institutions were already very dynamic and doing whatever is contained in the new education policy. Perhaps it was some smaller institutions which were lagging a little behind, and it is a good direction for them at least. So it does have a purpose.
Everybody
complimenting the government for bringing in the new education policy, and it's going to pay dividends, Dr. Ajit. We have to think of the nation as a whole. And I think...
Listen to me, next question. The first question that I asked was, a student, as per NEP, a student who has taken physics, maths, and done some, soft subject like geography, he would study engineering. But before, a same student from Lesotho or Zambia or South Africa having physics, maths, and some other subject like geography, we go to AI, you bring it, and AI would say, no, we don't give equivalence.
No,
The basic homework has not been done.
Dr. Ajit, suppose I'm talking about LPU. There are 46 minors available, and there are 76 standalone open electives. So it is up to the student. He can choose courses of his own discipline also. The idea is flexibility. You know, in best of the American universities, I know of a person who, along with engineering, did political science. So it is up to the student to see where his interest lies. I think that kind of flexibility that is what flexibility means.
I think the point that Dr. Ajit is raising, which is the element of that what was wrong with what was earlier in the sense of the combinations, and so that we are lauding ourselves on this massive change. The combination still existed.
We are patting our back unnecessarily. We are patting our back unnecessarily. Now I will give one more example. You know, I am a product of 10+2. Okay.
Right.
My immediate brother was a product of 5+3+3. 10+2 started in, because I finished my class 10th in 1978.
Right.
77 was the first time when the higher secondary got terminated. Okay. That time we had 11+3.
Dr. Ajit, sorry, I think we should provide some more information to the audience that we have.
Yeah,
I mean, this debate can go on.
Be a little more specific to the
I think this can go on.
I want to be able to come in.
I'm sorry for saying this, but
no. I think because what I think has happened, Dr. Modi, thank you for bringing that. Dr. Ajit is actually raising very important points that are part of the NUP now. One is the whole element of combinations, majors, minors. That's one aspect. The other aspect is that whole combination element of how the structure in itself is now looking at changing, where you're looking at 5+3+3.
How did the structure? How did the structure? Sir, I am only, everybody said in favor. I am only trying to give you negatives of it.
You're absolutely right to do that. Absolutely right. And I think we need that viewpoint.
Why to pat your back so much? What is the difference between 10+2 and 5+3+3?
Is this the issue which we should address to the audience that we have today? That's my only point.
So I think it's important for us to therefore clarify that element. And absolutely right. The points raised in terms of from the devil's advocate's perspective are extremely valid. We are looking at combinations, majors, minors. We are now looking at new things that students can approach and look at, right? Earlier, where we were looking at a 3-year degree in a university, now you're looking at an option of being able to have a 4-year course, you have a credit bank, you have the ability to clock in and clock out, go into the industry, work, come back. You have that whole structure. So what I want from you is to be able to share with me, and perhaps it may not be a bad idea for Dr. Ajit to be our devil's advocate today, to be able to help give his perspective. And for
madam, everybody spoke in favor of it. I'm not trying to give the negatives of it unnecessarily.
You're right, sir. I absolutely agree, and I think your viewpoint is actually allowing us for a much more balanced discussion to take place, which is going to allow students to choose better as well.
I accept Modi sir's one point that he said, giving an exit. China had this. After 3 years of associate degree, you go out 2-3 years, come and finish your degree. I like that part. In this new NEP, which is put in the framework, is that you exit for some time, come back and do the degree. In the erstwhile scenario, maybe it was a troublesome, but it is documented now. It is easy. That exit is one good area shining. Otherwise, I don't see anything which is laudable. Just because again, the government has done it.
No. So let's bring that back. So we've got majors and minors. All right. So Dr. Modi mentioned a little bit about that. I do want you to all to be able to talk about the majors and minors and how that implies, as a student, for me, what is my advantage, disadvantage in being able to choose major, minor, and do they need to be in the same area? Can I choose majors and minors that are separate, that are going to help me with the education policy being able to be as my umbrella, allowing me to do that? Furthermore, we're looking at a changed academic structure. From the 10+2 element, we're going to the 5+3+3+4. I have the option of being able to get in and get out, which also is coming through as maybe an advantage, maybe not. So your thoughts on those elements that I'd like you to be able to share. So again, I'll go back to I'll go back to Dr. Modi first. Give me your thoughts on that, and then Chaitanya, I'll come to you, and of course we'll come to Dr. Ajit then, and be able to.
Let me no. This is a very important dimension. Let us forget about the point that whether it is new or not new, for some institutions it is new, for some like the private institutions like LPU and Lake University and Goenka, which Ajit represents. I think it may be something old because they have been doing it. We are on the cutting edge. But let us understand this element that now we are at par with the global education system.
Right.
And for example, something which is which goes against the engineering degree at times is that their thoughts are absolutely straight-jacketed thoughts. Okay. They are not as sensitive to the needs of the society. They will do engineering, they will do computing, but they don't know how to. They are not sensitized to the needs of the society. So social science exposure, whether it is for psychology, or it is fine arts, or it is performing arts, or it is management, it gives them an opportunity to go beyond their discipline, forget technology for a while, and understand what are the issues. Because at times you have technology, but you can't manage it.
Right.
There are a lot of companies fail because they have the technology, but somebody else, makes profit out of it. Why? Because they're able to manage it well. They understand the market situation very well. There have been cases where small companies have been sold for a pittance, and bigger companies have made billions out of that.
Right.
Why? Because those people were not sensitized. They could not look into the future. They were technology people who had no orientation of management or understanding society.
Right.
So this is what it does. Number one. Number two, it gives you it sharpens your multiple intelligences. You can think in different ways. You have different perspectives of looking at things. Normally, technology people would not look at the political scenario, the economic scenario, the social developments, the interrelationships, personal interactions. They don't know the significance of this. Soft skills. They are only concerned that I can do this.
Right.
This is my technology. And they at times fail in their social interactions with people. So it is this diversion that has been created enables them to do it. And that is why I said we have 46 minors. 46 minors. So it is up to the student. He says, I want to diversify. And these minors are available. For example, today, technology has become so important. For example, somebody opts for social sciences now.
Yeah.
He's doing a course in sociology or psychology or political science. And he has now, he may not find a job later on. So we say, okay, to empower you, you can opt for you can choose 4 courses of coding or programming and go ahead with it so that you have an alternate. You can take courses in entrepreneurship.
Right.
And at times the student needs relief. And I have seen students of engineering in between say, I don't want to do engineering. I want to, and people shift to hotel management, people shift to animation, people shift to even fashion designing, and because of the creative field. So I think earlier choices were limited.
Right. Dr. Ajit, if you could mute your mic, please. Sorry, just
minors have opened up the minds of students that yes, it makes a lot of sense. And if it was not making sense, why would students opt for it? But let me also tell you that when minors are offered, it does not compromise with the core discipline.
Fair point.
There is no need to worry. There is no compromise on the number of courses, subjects which need to be taught in that core discipline or the degree. Super. So I think it is something to bring you at par with the global education, and that is what India required.
Right.
Because in cosmopolitan atmosphere, now we in LPU have 3,500 students from 60 different countries of the world. We have students for every nook and corner of India. Reason is this, that we are at par. We believe we are at par. We can match any international degree today.
So great. So we've got a more global education point of view. So Chaitanya, your thoughts on the fact that I can clock in, clock out. I have a credit system. I have a major and a minor now that allows me to be, to use the word that gets used a lot, multidisciplinary. What are my advantages as a student when I'm looking at higher education according to you then?
So for the longest time, there has been this massive gap between what the industry wants from education and what the education institutes graduate out, right?
Yeah.
And one way to kind of solve that is to have an institute which is by the industry, made up of the industry, for the industry.
Okay.
So Whistling Woods is that. Our parent company is in the film and media and entertainment industry. So for them, it was very simple to backward integrate. They knew what the industry needed, and hence we could build out but that's not going to be possible for everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's up to education institutions to make sure that they actually output students that not only add value to the industry, but also push it up.
Yeah.
Now, one of the best, most successful programs in media and entertainment, in journalism, for example, globally, is the BBC Sandwich program, which actually is a structured program which has been running for 30 years or so, where they do X number of years in class, then they go out, they work with the BBC, and then they come back and finish their program. And one of the reasons why this program has probably seeded some of the best journalists all over the world is specifically because of this reason. So if you just take this, and there are lots of others,
Right.
I mean, I'm just giving you one example. So if you just look at this and the value that it adds, where it actually allows you to apply what you are learning, because that's really the key, right? Almost all of us, the whole world is an applied world. There are, in research, yes, there is a lot of pure sciences, pure arts involved, but most of the world is an applied world.
Right.
Just like our industry is an applied arts industry. So why would I not want the student to actually experience some application of what they're learning, which is what the credit system allows to do, which is what the credit bank allows to do. It allows students to go out, work for a while, come back, and kind of build on the application that they've done in the real world.
Right.
So that's one part. The other part is that when they go out and they actually interact with the real world, it puts that much more pressure on the educational institutions to make sure that their education is current and relevant.
Mm-hmm.
And that has not ossified or that has not fossilized.
Nice.
Which is which happens pretty regularly, right? Where there's somebody who's actually not worked in the industry for 30 years who's still teaching. So the idea is that everybody's coming together to raise the bar.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really the big picture that you have to look at. What's the problem that is trying to solve? And in this particular case, I think it's solving it pretty well. Like I said, only policy is not going to solve it.
Correct.
The educational institutions have to step up, and they have to create that environment, and they have to create that structure, and they have to partner with industry to actually build out sandwich programs.
Right.
So that's, we're hoping to see that from some of India's educational institutions.
Wonderful.
So that's, if you look at the credit bank bit, right?
Sure.
The other additional thing which I think is most people miss it out in the NEP is the very, very strong focus on teacher training and teacher education. Because without that, almost nothing else will work.
Agreed.
Right? So if your teachers aren't not just in sync with the industry, but 6 to 8 to 12 to 18 months ahead of the industry,
yeah.
If your teachers aren't ahead of the industry, your education is always going to be behind the industry.
Mm-hmm.
So educational institutions, any student who graduates should be 6 to 8 months ahead of the industry curve. That's what we've been doing at Whistling Woods, whether it comes to how we deploy emerging technology in the film and media industry with digital cinematography, virtual reality. I mean, we've had a VR lab since 2017, when most of the country was still trying to figure out what VR is. Currently, we're working in virtual production. So, which, hopefully 4 or 5 years later, our industry will adopt, maybe 3 years later. So the goal is that these things are kind of almost structurally now enabled by the NEP with teacher training, with just making it more progressive, making educational institutions, freeing them up to do things that they believe will make better students.
Great, thank you. And I agree. I do agree with you. The teaching element and the reverse engineering element of getting teachers ready also is very important. Dr. Ajit, your thoughts on the credit bank, on being able to clock in, clock out, go back in, accumulate, do my major, minor, and how GD Goenka with the major minors that you would have already available, how you're looking at this element for this aspect of it.
Madam, I start again with where I left earlier, because that time we had. I want to start again, little back again. NEP is good. I said earlier also in my field that I thought was the exit mode, where suddenly going out and then doing 2-3 years job come. Again, I want to have all of you, the panelists, to have a little back view of this. A teacher who was there today in the old education policy, there were two kinds of teacher. One is a TGT and another was a PGT. TGT was teaching up to class 10th.
Right.
Okay. TGT was teaching up to class 10th, and the class up to class 10th, the science was a combined subject. Physics, chemistry, biology. Maybe physics, chemistry, separate books, but the TGT was, there was chemistry TGT, physics TGT. Now, bringing in the new policy where 5 plus 3 plus 3.
Right.
Now, after 3, after class 8, there is 9, 10, 11. Those who were teaching earlier 9, 10, 10. Now for teaching class 9, 10, 11, it would be advanced chemistry, it would be advanced physics, it would be advanced mathematics. Would you engage a TGT or a PGT? Number one. What I see is, please let me finish. Right. What I see is the present government is doing things without preparation, same like demonetization. Without any kind of preparation, announcing something, patting back, and then you face consequence, I face consequence. It will be. I am telling you, please listen to me. I am looking at the bottom of things. There were teachers who were teaching
Dr. Ajit, please allow me to come in just for a moment.
I mean, this is this entire conversation we're having. How is it helping the student in any way?
Agreed. Hang on. We'll just
focus on a very different tangent.
Focus on.
It's on a very different tangent.
Can we talk about that?
I don't know what.
I agree. Just let me.
Why don't we take some questions from students if they're coming?
No, I want to be able to look at it from the higher education perspective, Dr. Ajit. If you could focus that for me. I understand what you're trying to say. From the back end, what needs to be done. You're absolutely right on that. But we are not, unfortunately, we don't have the time or the platform to be able to go back to be able to fix what the school element is.
I told you, let me go. I told you, let me go back. Then I will relate with higher education. I told you, let me go a little back. Then I will relate with the higher education. When the basic structure is not right, the basic thought process is not right. You're making a building.
I think
put a good foundation.
Dr. Modi, just one second. We'll do that. Okay. Your point on the fact that the basic structure needs a huge amount of work is absolutely well taken. I am not in disagreement with that. I don't think anybody is. I think we do need a lot of work on the basic structure.
I am adding also.
Dr. Ajit, let us focus on what good things we have, which will impress, which will be of interest to the audience.
That's what I'm saying, sir.
GD Goenka, please speak about it.
Sir, in NEP,
I want you to be. I do understand your point on the school piece. Yeah, I would like to be able to get your input on.
No, sir, madam, I'm coming to that. On NEP,
right.
On higher education, I'm saying what needs to be done was adding foundation courses. So for example, suppose I am coming from a non-biology background and wants to study a biology subject.
Right.
I should be given some foundation program in biology to enter into higher education. That was required primarily. Think of bringing soft skill program, all this. What was required was to enter into higher education, bringing in written down document on introducing fundamental foundation courses. Suppose you want to change.
And I think a lot of that has been already in a lot of institutes, like in a lot of the higher education institutes.
It's still not documented.
Laws,
I mean,
that.
Yeah, just a sec. So foundation courses, these things, enabling students from different verticals to move into the vertical of their choice. These are incumbent on each individual institution to do.
Yeah. I agree.
Nobody's ever stopped you from doing it, right? Neither does it now. So, like for example, 60% of our postgrad film applicants are actually engineers. we've had
Mr.
doctors, we've
Chaitanya,
had dentists,
it
we've
is
had
not
merchant navy
documented. It is
people.
not possible. It
So
is not
the
possible in
whole-
an earlier policy also, neither now also.
All right. So
If
one way,
somebody-
okay, let's look
Sir,
at
it's
one.
very
I'd
much-
like to
hold on. It's very much possible now. We've been doing it for 15 years.
So let me just bring it to a different
We
point.
have had thousands of students who passed through Whistling Wood, who have come from different streams at their undergrad level, who have successfully become filmmakers. Because we have offered the kind of foundation education that is needed for a student to transition from engineering or medicine or merchant navy or BCom or BA or whichever subject that they wanted into film or into creative arts or into performing arts or into fashion or music or design. It is incumbent on each educational institution how they would like to treat students who are coming from different verticals and shepherd them into the career of their choice.
So I think that's wonderful in the terms of higher education has now, and especially private institutions like yours, have actually opened it up for multidisciplinary learning to come in, to the point where I can be from anywhere, but I can now follow a passion that can be maybe not necessarily related to what I studied in school. And that's great. So what I want to be able to do is actually come to that point and see what is the element that we're looking at, the importance of multidisciplinary learning for the future for the student, so that when they're in school, they start building that thought process because they're going to encounter it in higher education. If you could give me your views on and your thought on taking from the basics of what the NEP is now trying to build, what is the importance of multidisciplinary and why is it important for a student to be in a multidisciplinary thought of whether major, minor combination, etc. So if you could give me your thoughts on that.
So just to kind of, actually, this is an excellent point for me because just 2 days ago, I was looking at a particular batch of our alumni, and in the same class of the students, there is one student who's a regional director of Sprinkler that just debuted on the New York Stock Exchange. There is another batchmate of his who has set up a space exploration and nano-satellite based startup and is going for first round of VC funding. There is another batchmate of theirs who's working as a creative producer in an ad agency. A fourth batchmate of that is a singer. So it's the multidisciplinary education that they have received, which allows them to study political science and creative arts and history of art and history of theater and documentary and non-fiction narratives in different modules over their career as they chose fate, right? As they kind of wanted to chart their path. So that's, I think, the way that you have to do. You have to build out multi-level approach for each education vertical. Like, I'm very happy when Dr. Modi says that he has 46 minors. I mean, if I started my education, higher education in 1993, I would have jumped up and down with my hair on fire if somebody had offered me 46 minors. Unfortunately, it wasn't. Right? And I had to kind of self-educate myself. So I am, by profession, I'm a chartered accountant and BCom, but today I'm the business head of Whistling Wood. I'm also the chief technology officer and I head the emerging media department. Right? Yeah. I'm on the global board of governors of the foremost engineering association of my industry, despite being a BCom. So anyway, what I'm trying to get to is that if we are able to offer a level-based, a 101, 201, 301 kind of structure for multiple verticals or multiple areas of education within the same program, for students to choose their own meal, like a thali, right? It's incumbent on educational institutions to provide the right infrastructure, the right technology, the right teachers, and most importantly, the right guidance and mentorship to enable students to choose the combination that suits them best. I think that's the approach to go. There has to be a combination of choice-based credit system, conservatory system, foundation education, specialized education. Education should start shallow and wide, and then as the program moves forward, it should become narrow and deep, which is what the goal should be.
Perfect. Dr. Modi, your thoughts on, you've already shared the importance of the majors and minors.
Let me point out just one more dimension through this. Today, we have been considering traditionally that it is the teacher who disseminates knowledge and he is the store of all wisdom. But I think it is interdisciplinary education which allows students to be active participants in creation of knowledge.
Right.
I think teacher today can only deliver about 50%. The rest has to come from the students. If you give leverage to the students, if you allow them to stay engaged, give them the freedom to explore.
Right.
I have seen people of engineering, beating the journalism students in photography, and engineering students doing very well in a fashion design program.
Right.
They would create a design, and vice versa. So I think there are no boundaries which have been created by various disciplines. It is very important that people of different disciplines come together and bring different perspectives, and they learn from each other.
Wonderful.
Perhaps an engineer's perspective, a social scientist would never be able to get. It is only in multidisciplinary institutions that you get that perspective and become enriched. And then you believe I'm capable of. And then the students are working on joint projects. You have one engineer, suppose you want to get into entrepreneurship. You have one engineer, one management chap. When my pharmacy head of school now she wanted to, commercialize a patent.
Right.
She came to me. I'm a management person. She came to me, sir, I don't know how to negotiate, how to calculate the value of my patent. So then we sat down. I said it was a medicine for colon cancer. So I said, okay, what is the incidence of disease? And then we calculated, and she said, wow, I never knew about this.
Right.
This is the charm of multidisciplinary education, where everybody can add value. So this is what is required, and it's a wonderful thought.
Yeah, and multidisciplinary, I think.
And Shilpa, can I say one thing more?
Please.
I think Chaitanya raised a very important point of, deepening the interaction with the industry. And in fact, it is the industry which is running the program. But I think for the universities, which are standalone universities, which are not by the industry, I think the other option which is left open and which is a very fertile option is that you create collaborations with the industry. For example,
right.
NPU, we have about 12 collaborations. We have 12 programs which are partly taught by the industry people. We have one on supply chain management. We have one on analytics, where people from the industry come.
Right.
The Google offers its digital marketing program. So the plenty of programs which are being, more than a dozen programs are being offered by the industry. So that is the way to go. And industry offers live projects. We have a collaboration with Amazon, and many other industries, Bosch, where they provide training to, he spoke about teacher training. They provide training to our teachers. They become teacher trainers, and then it gets passed on to the student. So
Wonderful.
This is the way to go, deepening the interaction with the industry. And the consequence of this, let me share this. The consequence of this is that we have 630 companies coming to the campus for campus recruitment. 630 companies. Last year it was 580, and this year it is 630. Sorry, 2019 it was 580, and this time it's 630 companies. Now this is the outcome.
Correct.
Why? Because they are industry ready now. Because industry is giving inputs. There is a multidisciplinary exchange, and people have a very fertile mind with higher order thinking skills.
Superb. So, Dr. Ajit, I'd like you to weigh in on how in your institute there is an industry interaction and how that's getting students ready for the job market. So if you could share that.
Yeah, in our Judy Goenka, as
you might need to move your camera a little bit, sir. We're not being able to see you clearly. There you are. Yeah.
Cracking up. Can you hear?
Is it okay?
Yeah. We'll
Is it okay now?
Yeah, much better. Yeah.
We have this year in Judy Goenka passing out almost 1,000 students. And when you compare with size, no drivers, when compare with size, students who are after going from our institution, average package to about 7.5 lakh rupees.
I think his internet is cutting out.
Multiple, the industries have for this year placement, we had almost 100+ companies in the campus. Now, are we only talking of placement part, or should we? Is it involved with the new education policy?
No, I wanted to be able to get your
efforts.
No, I wanted to get your input on industry interaction at GT Goenka and how that's getting students ready, sir.
I think there is a problem with the Hello?
Can you hear me?
I think there's a problem with the audio. I think we can allow him to correct his audio for a while. And
Dr. Ajit, I think internet issue is there at your end since I think you are traveling. Okay. So,
I think I have a network issue. I have a network issue because I am.
No problem, Dr. Ajit. It's absolutely fine. I can understand that you are traveling and there must be a network issue. Shilpa ma'am, you can switch the question to other panelists, please.
I think, Shilpaji, can I add one more point?
Please,
I think, you see, I think it is very important, which is done in the West, that the certification of the skills of a student, the outcomes that one has acquired in education should be certified by a third party.
Right.
So I think that trend is also catching up. And now it is not, examination is one part of the evaluation. But now before the placement season, we allow a third party to come in. They examine as to what are the industry requirements and they certify whether the student is up to the mark to be able to be absorbed in the industry. I think that has worked wonders.
So that job readiness from the perspective of the industry.
Right. So it is not the examination score, which is the ultimate parameter for the competence, industry relevant competence of the student. So I think it is good to bring third party interventions for an objective evaluation of the industry.
I agree. And I think more and more being able to have industry input and being able to look at a multidisciplinary element where we're looking at importance to critical thinking and problem solving is very important. But I want to be able to get inputs from both Chaitanya as well as you, because well, you're there. I think Dr. Ajit had a major issue with his connectivity. Your admissions processes, of course, are not, I mean, we've looked at traditional admissions processes that have been there that have been very merit-based. I get X percentage, I get into an X college because of a cutoff. How do you feel that with the structure changing in the school system on how we're going to be able to look at how we're spreading things out, with the focus that NEP has brought in on things like design thinking and critical thinking, bringing in elements of understanding AI, how have your admissions processes been different to be able to incorporate that wider variety of students? So if you could give me your input, and I think because you just spoke, so I'll just give Chaitanya that and then we'll come back to you.
Sure.
Chaitanya, your thoughts on your thoughts on that.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. So I mean, it's a funny thing when students or parents who kind of want their kids to get into Whistling Wood, when they ask me, what's the entrance process like, and etc. etc. So I have a very simple thing that I tell them. I tell them that if you approach it thinking it's the hardest thing in the world, it's actually pretty easy. If you approach it thinking it's the easiest exam in the world, then it's really hard, right? So which basically means that you essentially have to. It's not something that you can wake up one day and say that, you know what, I am this well-rounded student who's qualified enough to become a filmmaker or a fashion designer or etc.
Right.
This is something that you generally need to start cultivating from the time that you have figured out that this is what I want to do. You want to do something about it, which doesn't mean that I want you to make films, because if you know how to make great films, that's not the point. The point is you have to enable yourself to become a better media and entertainment student.
Right.
And so we have a 4-step process for that. The first is a general aptitude test, which is, just testing your general awareness. Second is a creative aptitude test, which is a test that we've designed internally to make sure that students are able to understand the 4 areas of creative thinking, which is strategic thinking, lateral thinking, design thinking, and most important is narrative thinking. Right? Are they able to put B after A and C after B, in a narrative way? So there's that. Then there is a particular submission that each student needs to do, which is dependent on what they have applied for. So there's a different submission for film, different for animation, different for gaming, different for fashion, different for design, for music. And finally, there is an interview. Now, we don't do cutoffs at the end of each. All the students who apply do all these things.
Right.
Because there may be some students who may be really, really good in creative, but may not have excellent general aptitude, which is something they can pick up on. So the idea is all students do all this, and then there is a score to this, there is a cutoff, and that's how we that's how we kind of choose the students that we take in. So honestly, for when it comes to the 12th grade, all we need for them is to pass, and that too because the UGC needs it. So or whichever board needs it. So we have our own evaluation criteria. Now on this, and I'm just taking the liberty of the fact that they just go first kind of spend a little more time on this. Again, it's up to higher educational institutions to try and put a little bit of fertilizer in the quality of students that you're getting, right? So we started in 2006. By 2010, we realized that we need to up the quality.
Right.
So we actually went out to the CBSE board and said, we will help you structure an elective in media studies for the 11th and 12th grade, and we will do the teacher training for you. We will do everything free of cost. You don't need to. So there's no tender, all that government stuff, right? So stay out of that. And we did that. And we did a pilot program with about 20 CBSE schools all over India, Salwan and DPS and Podar here in Mumbai, etc., etc. And that went off really well. And then CBSE's rolled out to about 700 schools now all across. And what we started to notice is from 2013 onwards, the quality of applications came up, went up, right? The cutoff scores went up. Their performances in the entrance exams started to get better and better and better. So again, it's something that we did. It's something where we went out of our way, spent time, money, energy, effort to ensure that we got a better quality of applicants by seeding them the right education at the formative stage, which is the 11th and 12th grade, which opened up their mind ke boss, lawyer, doctor, engineer, chartered accountant, chhod ke bhi careers hote hain.
Right.
Now there are, so I think these are the two things that I'd like to talk about. One is to have a wide spectrum of testing. And the second is to, try and backward integrate a little bit of your outreach to make sure that you're seeding the right kind of student.
Perfect. That makes sense. Dr. Modi, your thoughts on how private institutions are now taking in students that is very different from what used to be. And we unfortunately are also running out of time, I can see.
Yeah, I think most of the things which Chaitanya said also apply, except that one additional dimension that we focus on is the general awareness of the student. Because to me, that is extremely important. To contextualize what he knows is very important. And this is what we have been lacking for a very long time, that we only teach from the books and don't contextualize the concepts and whatever principles have to be taught. Whatever is applicable to America in a particular, say, management discipline may not be relevant to India. So from that perspective, we add that, and we do not give admission at any undergraduate or postgraduate program without an entrance test. And in certain programs, we have an interview and group discussion, because the rigor is important. We want to check the aptitude. And in case the student is not found up to the mark, we counsel that, your capabilities, your orientations perhaps towards this. So do you want to exercise this option? One. Two, I think one thing which we have done is we have allowed shifting of a transfer of a program even after admission.
Right.
And that has done wonders. So we allow that for the first 6 months or 3 months, you can transfer your program. Suppose you get into a program and say, no, this is not my cup of tea. So instead of wasting 3 years, so we allow him to, with the consent of the parents or whoever his guardian is, we allow them to shift the program so that a person is able to take the right decision and feel comfortable in the program that one has chosen.
Super. So we've got a lot more flexibility now. Yeah. In context of the NEP, do you think we are on the right track when it comes to job readiness for students? Of course, with your institutes, with what is hopefully going to be implemented, we're still keeping that point. And Dr. Ajit's point completely taken. Are we on the right path for job readiness with the NEP? Dr. Modi. Dr. Modi first.
Like I said, the NEP takes away any policy or structural hindrances there have been for institutions to take themselves to the edge of the industry, right?
Perfect.
The flexibility that is needed, the freedom that is needed, the progressive individual efforts that are needed to take an educational institution to the edge, which may not have been possible earlier, because earlier there was too much uniformity, there was too much standardization. Now what it does is it allows educational institutions to go down their own path. I mean, one of the big successes of institutions like of the IITs is that they've been able to do that, right? Because they weren't really governed by the straitjacket norm. So I think that's the core of the ADP. It is still incumbent on each educational institution to make themselves, to take themselves to a point where they are outputting students that are industry ready. The ADP on its own, with no involvement from universities like Dr. Modi's or Whistling Woods or anybody else, is not going to be do anything on its own.
Right.
It's a policy decision. It's the structure that they are freeing up. They've cut your chain. Now, whether you choose to run or whether you choose to stand in the same spot, it's not the NEP's fault.
Right.
So I think that's the way that people have to look at it. You've been tugging at this ball and chain for the last 40 years, 50 years. Finally, somebody has broken it. Now run, damn, run. Right. So that's the kind of the approach that educational institutions, that's how we feel, honestly, as educational institutions, that we've been freed up.
So great. So there is a freedom element. Dr. Modi, your thoughts?
I think the outcomes are very clear. We have been able to achieve absolute industry readiness. I told you, with the engagement of the industry, with the engagement of the alumni, engagement of all stakeholders, I think we ensure that the curriculum, the delivery, and in our case, everything is online. The student evaluates the faculty.
Right.
And the moment the student says the outcomes are not being achieved or are diluted, immediately some rectification is done. If the teacher needs to be counseled or trained or replaced, all those necessary things are done. But the student it is ensured that he's industry ready, number one. And I told you already, 630 companies coming, wonderful placements. But at the same time, beyond placements also, outcome-wise, we allow people to get into entrepreneurship. There are many people who want to get into higher education. So we train them for competitive exams for higher education. Somebody wants to go abroad, or somebody wants to appear for the civil services exams, and our students have cleared the civil services exam at the national level also, which is a proud moment for us. And the biggest outcome, I'll tell you, 11 of our students are representing India in the Tokyo Olympics. 11 students representing India. Now, look at this outcome. Look at this outcome. It is just because we are focused. We are focused on the outcomes. And of course, we were doing it earlier also, but then now we have complete freedom and we know the national education policy is supportive, the government is supportive. Earlier, there was a little bias against private institutions, but now I think the government has come to realize that they have a lot of value to add, and hence the more acceptability of their research projects and the grants on certain issues are being given. So they're more supportive of the private sector. And I think that's for the national.
I'm really glad to be able to hear that. And you're right. I think it's time for both higher education and for our primary and school education, scholastic careers, to be able to do that run and go forward. There are some questions. There is one specifically, I think, for Chaitanya that's come in. And I think for mathematics, the question that has come in on what students can do, if I'll jump in and say that you can definitely look at maths and stats specifically, as well as look at data science. And a lot of great institutes are able to offer that. And that would be a really great way for you to be able to connect with maths, of course. So that would be another way you can explore mathematics.
It's a great skill. Mathematics is great, much in demand. Analytics is
correct. So the data science element will come in. But remember, multidisciplinary learning, even in data science, you do need to be able to understand psychology as well, because we are looking at how we're coding that. And so bias and how we're addressing that is something there. So understanding psychology, sociology, and coding, and being able to do applied mathematics with stats will actually help put you on a very interesting path. Fashion design in India, of course, we have lots of options for fashion design. These are entrance exam-based options. Some of the better ones.
We have a very good fashion school, excellent fashion school. We have collaboration with many Italian and French and
which is the seat of fashion, of course. So we've got LPU, of course, that's offering fashion. Of course, you have the much older institutes like NIFT and NID that are also offering fashion. You've got Pearl. There are plenty of names that we can actually do. Please feel free to reach out to us. Whistling Woods as well, yes. So both the institutes here are offering fashion, of course, and that is a great way to be able to do that. But all entrance exam based, so and you do need to be able to, of course, draw. That helps a lot. But yeah, write into us. We'll give you more details, most certainly. Chaitanya, your specific question: internship opportunities what Whistling Wood offers for filmmaking and journalism.
Yeah. So we do kind of key things with students. So one, the program itself is so practical and applied and hands-on that it's like you are part of the non-fiction news industry while you're studying, whether it's news production, whether it's podcast, whether it's documentary, whether it's the thesis that you do, your research report, etc., etc. So that. B, you have 2 weeks of live project that you're allowed to do every semester, where you can actually go out and be part of a live documentary or news or any kind of experience that students go all over the country and do. A couple of years ago, we had about 80 of our students go out to almost 40 locations all across India and document specific projects that the NABARD was doing. So that was a collaboration with NABARD where they wanted to document some of their projects, and it actually turned the students out into much more evolved individuals, because if you've lived your entire life on Pali Hill and Malabar Hill and suddenly you get to go to Haryana and you see how the bull rearing business there functions, and you're able to you get connected to a part of India that you wouldn't be connected to otherwise, right? So these things are there. At the end of the first semester, there is a NGO internship, which we recommend that every single student do. So till a couple of years ago, it was mandatory, but now we're making it recommendatory, because it's important for students to understand how NGOs function and that the entire concept of service, which is they need to understand that. So these are the kind of the 2 or 3 things that we do. So the program itself is very intensive and practical. You have 2 weeks live project each semester that you can do, and then there is this one particular internship. So that's
wonderful.
That's how I would put it.
Great. So that sounds fairly comprehensive. I'm sure, Dr. Modi, you also have lots of internships that are there.
I think this is the core. I think today what is more important is skills.
Yeah.
Anybody, the ability to do certain things, not to understand, but to do, to be able to do, to be able to create on the, standing on your feet. So what we are doing is, apart from, we have made sure that it's a 3-year program, every summer vacation is utilized for either recommended or mandatory some kind of activity he has to do, whether he works for the community or he goes with an NGO or he goes to the industry or he has to do a project around his class. 1. 2, we also allow students that if we have a lot of industries associated with us who need people for, say, a couple of months to 6 months and even to 1 year. We allow students to go to internship so that they can have hands-on exposure, and supplementary mentorship is given to them. So in order to make them, to ensure that they are able to complete their credits. Now, this is what has, and a majority of them who do this are immediately absorbed by the company, by the industry. And at times, some of them do even better than the regular employees. So that's the irony of it. And so it is paying up very well. Industry is very receptive to it, and every passing day, the number of companies are increasing. And for example, another thing that we do is, for example, my students of animation. I think 2nd year onwards, majority of them who are into graphic design and animation design start earning 30,000-40,000 rupees a semester. They put their profile on Behance, get projects, small projects, $5, $20 projects, and they're happy.
Right.
And I'm proud to say that there is a student of ours who passed out in 2019. He quit his 14 lakhs job in the industry, a animation chap. You can't think of, even engineering students don't get those kind of placements. And he set up his own company because he's able to do far better. And he's got multinational contracts now.
Wonderful.
So this is this is what it trains people for entrepreneurship and creative thinking, lateral thinking, and
so that's great. I'll just put the thing across for both of you. Do you provide?
Just add a small thing to what Dr. Modi said. So when So 13 years ago, when we graduated our first batch, almost 70% of our the graduation sought employment. Today, it's less than 30%. 70% want to do something on their own.
Yes,
So
yes.
4 or 5 students will get together and start a small production house, or fashion students will look at starting their own thing on the side, or so on and so forth. So I think that element of that you are a professional and you're a professional first. You may choose to go into employment, but by core nature you are a professional. I think that has started to seep in more and more and more into our academics, which I'm thrilled about, because what that also allows students to do, it allows them to take risks early, because this is the time to take risks. If you're not going to take risks at in your early 20s, so then when are you going to take, right? So too many students build a safety net right out of college, which honestly is, depends on each individual's perspective, but I would recommend that students take risks early in their career. And that's really where entrepreneurship emerges from. So I think that's one thing I wanted to add. There's another question here for me, which is, which entrance was I talking about? This is the Whistling Woods entrance.
Whistling Woods entrance, yeah.
Yeah, it happens every, well, it used to happen every alternate month, but because of COVID now we're doing it every month with a smaller group of students. So just go to the Whistling Woods website and you'll see when the August dates are. I don't know if the August dates are out, but just write to me and I'll tell you. We finished our July admissions this week, so otherwise I would have asked you for July. Somnath says, does Whistling Woods have international tie-up for dual certification? Unfortunately, no, India doesn't allow dual certification at this point of time. You can either do one international or Indian. We prefer to do it here. But honestly, it doesn't really matter. We've got, our alumni literally span the globe.
Right.
We have students who are working in Vancouver. If you look at it as a map, we have students who are working in Vancouver, and we have students who are working in New Zealand. So literally span the globe. Honestly, it doesn't matter. Any Indian academic degree today carries a lot of weight globally. So I don't think that's something that you need to worry about international.
I think there's a...
Shilpa, can I add one thing here?
Yeah.
I think though dual degrees may not be allowed, but 2+2 kind of an arrangement does exist. And we have that arrangement with about more than 100 universities across the globe. So a student who is doing engineering can complete 2 years in LPU and rest of the 2 years elsewhere in Curtin or in wherever, Cincinnati, or wherever we have a relationship with. So that's very much possible. Or we have a system of credit transfer. You can spend a semester abroad and that credit can be brought back to LPU.
Yeah.
So the way it suits the student. So that option is available across disciplines.
And do you provide, there's a question asking, I think, about scholarships for NRI students?
Yes. Scholarship on merit are available to everybody. Everybody is eligible for those scholarships.
Perfect. So
depending on the entrance performance in the entrance exam, or depending on the merit of the qualifying exam.
Perfect. Great. So thank you so much. I think we've completed the questions, and we've gone over time as well. And I appreciate both of you for your candor, for your information you've shared. We are looking at a definite, we've always been a multidisciplinary world, and it's finally time that we have all recognized that on all levels. Problem solving requires an understanding of completely of the world. And I think the NEP as such has now laid the right foundation finally for us at the school level to start growing, so that when we are ready to go to the postgrad or the grad levels and postgrad levels, we are ready to be able to take on the world and be more ready for problem solving and be better at global work there. So great. Thank you so much. Vivek, over to you.
Yes. So there's one question, Ms. Mohammed Imtiaz have asked Dr. Modi from which university? So yes, Dr. Sanjay Modi is from lovely professional university. And we can share the details of the university, or you can visit the virtual admissions fair. The fair, technically, it's getting over today, but still you will be able to access all the information. You'll be able to access the platform for another 2 weeks. So please visit the platform. You can leave message, interact with the participating institutions. just beside video interactions, all the other interaction is certainly possible. So all the audience who are attending, thank you so much for spending, quite some time with us, and lot many questions have also come in. I'm sure to a certain extent, most of the query must have been answered by our esteemed panelist. Thank you, Dr. Modi, for your valuable inputs and giving a complete wide outlook on the subject NEP and how it's benefiting students in various ways. And thank you, Chaitanya sir, for giving your greater inputs on this subject. And my special thanks to Shilpa ma'am. As always, you have been a great, moderator, managing the difficult sides as well. But I think you have steered this session so well. My heartiest congratulations and thanks to all of you. And certainly next year, 2020-22, we are expecting to get all the virtual participants to in a physical format. So certainly you can expect Shilpa ma'am, you can expect Dr. Modi, you can expect Whistling Woods, all are participating universities, traveling to Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Sharjah, Ras Al Khaimah, Doha, as well as Muscat. So we've missed you certainly doing so many exhibitions in physical format, but this is the new normal, doing something, little more, stay connecting over the virtual platform. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you,
I hope
everybody.
it has added value to the students.
I'm sure. No, your inputs have been very valuable, both of you. Thank you very much for your time. And thank you, Vivek, for giving us the opportunity to connect with so many students.
Good luck to all students.
Yes.
Thank
you, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Shilpa ji.
Stay safe.
Thank you, Chaitanya. Pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, sir. Good to meet you.
Pleasure.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.